So, I mentioned earlier that I had an idea for a new music lesson, and here it is. I want to talk today about chord substitutions. There's a basic idea behind a chord substitution is that you take an established chord progression and melody, and you swap a chord with a different chord while still maintaining the same harmonic balance. We can do this without screwing up the song and introducing dissonance because of how chords are constructed through the use of common tones. I'm going to keep this lesson simple and start with triads. So every triad shares two common tones with two other triads. Those are the relative third and the relative sixth. For example, A minor, ACE, shares two tones with the three chord, which is C major, CEG, and the sixth chord, F major, FAC. So swapping the one chord with the three is a pretty good substitution. But 1 to 6 is one of the strongest. And I want to demonstrate this with a simple tune. So that's just my variation of the Elder Scrolls theme. I'm going to focus mainly on the first four chords. The bass chord progression I'm playing here is A minor, C major, G major, back to A. So if I use the 1-6 substitution I mentioned earlier, from A minor to F major, I can go from this solemn minor feel to a more heroic, uplifting major. And again, the reason this works is because the note of the melody, this C, is shared between both the A and the F. If I were to go from A to C, it would also work. In this case, I'd sub the second chord from C to something else, like an E minor, and then I could go ahead and sub the G for a D. And this is exactly what I played when I did the whole transition leading up to the second half after the first four chords. The melody is exactly the same for both lines up to the G. But because of the substitutions, the overall piece has a different feel. And this really works well with any sort of iteration of the third and the sixth that you can think of. So instead of ACGA, I can play FAEA, earlier I did CEDA, and really any combination where you're taking a chord from the original melody, switching it with a third or a sixth, it's gonna sound fine. It might not sound great, but there isn't gonna be any dissonance or any problems with the melody in terms of harmonic contrast. And that's really the beauty of two-tone substitutions. Of course, we're not just limited to relative thirds and sixes. We can also have single common tone substitutions, and those will create different feelings as well. It works as long as the note of the melody is shared by the chord, like I showed with that C. So, for example, if I were playing a standard minor chord 6-7-1 ending, there's a very common established progression. It's one that wants to resolve the 1, the 6, and the 7. But if I did something else here, going to a D power chord instead of an A, I'm subbing in the 4 chord, which creates the suspension of the 1. Of course, the reason this happens, if we look at the way the chord is spelled, instead of playing an ACE, or rather the inversion up here, EAC, I'm playing DA, just DA, repeating, a D power chord. If we look at the chord ADE, That's an A sus4, and the 4 chord here, D and A, it shares 2 common tones with the A sus4. In this case, it functions as a suspended 1. So really, what a chord substitution is it's taking advantage of inversions and how they spell variations of other chords. This is more and more obvious when we start to work with 7 chords, or 4-note chords rather. Recently I did a breakdown for the song Obsidian Heart, and there's a chord progression from the C major 7 to this D chord from Iron Maiden's Children of the Damned. But if we actually take a look at the spelling of the D chord that I'm playing, D, F sharp, G, B, that's actually the notes for an inverted G major 7. In this case though, because the bass note comes first and we're transitioning from this C chord, the function of this inverted G major 7 works as a D chord. And the point I'm trying to make here is that learning and understanding how to spell chords is a really helpful tool for both songwriting and playing, and I think it's one of the most important chapters in music theory, after of course when you learn your intervals, which is the actual alphabet of music. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little break I decided to take from the scheduled videos, the breakdowns. It's a bit of a throwback to my older styles where I wasn't just talking about my own music. You know, of course, as much as I'd like to make as many videos, as many lessons as I can to teach, really these ideas only come to me at certain time periods, and I only decide to make videos whenever I'm inspired. It's mostly done on the spot. However, in this case, there is going to be a follow-up. I really hope I can drill in how much even a basic understanding of theory can do for you as a musician.